Yeah, hold on, let me switch it to that. Okay, that should be better.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you perfect. I can hear you perfect. Wow. Um, I just watched the last 45 minutes of that. Um, unbelievable stuff. Unbelievable
Yep.
stuff. I,
Yep.
I was thinking it was going to be closer to 50%. I can't believe it's only 13 days.
Yeah. It's definitely being pushed through. It's being pushed through aggressively, and it's being pushed through without really much debate, or preparation from anybody who opposes this. And a lot of homeowners out there that are still dealing with Irma claims, Michael claims. Uh, if they knew about this happening, if there was more advance notice, you'd probably have a line out the door of people testifying. Fortunately, we have had homeowners here testifying, trying to convince our legislators to take a good look at this. But it's they haven't been taking it in as much as they should. And
Well, so my biggest takeaway is a couple of reoccurring themes that I was hearing throughout that is on the nay side is talking about the fact that there's no data being brought up about
right,
real data to back up what is being pushed through this quickly. And on the opposing side, what I heard Albritton say, in quotes, is this has been building for years, and talking about it's been building since I think at one point he said 2010, but like they've really been pushing it since 2016, and then really big time after Hurricane Irma. But Boyd came in his closing statements and agreed that it's been pushing, and in the same breath, or that they've been pushing that for that long, but in the same breath said that I agree with you. We don't have the data yet. So my biggest question is how, if you've been working on this for that long, how is the only data that you have to say that 7% of all of the money paid out on claims has gone to policyholders? And then also, go ahead.
Yeah, it's terrifying because in reality, the and it's admitted by the proponents of this bill that the purpose is to basically limit litigation. They don't like when it's phrased limit homeowner access to the courts, but they all say yes, this is going to decrease litigation. Um, and the fact of the matter is, they were supposed to take litigation data and present it. So when questions are asked, how successful are homeowners in their lawsuits? How many homeowners have to bring bad faith lawsuits after they win on the breach of contract action? How many of those the bad faith claims are successful? What is the average claim size? What's the value of the average claim? They have no answers. And that is terrifying because essentially what they're doing, if they are limiting the access to the courts and basically limiting litigation, they aren't even sure without this data whether the litigation is something that's actually helping homeowners and is a successful process, which is actually keeping these insurance companies in check. So if they're successful in the lawsuits, who's really at fault? Is it the people litigating the claims, or is it the insurance companies that failed to pay on the claims?
Yeah.
And then if they're going insolvent because of the litigation, well, that's bad business practice. I guess you need to reconsider.
That's exactly where I was going with this, is that if you're saying that there was that much going to attorney fees, and if there were attorney fees paid out, then that means I mean, on the face of it, that simply means that they were in the right for filing the claim in the first place because they won. And so the fact that I had to go get an attorney is beyond me, because that's in itself bad faith, that you didn't come out to my property initially and pay what you were supposed to pay off the bat. I had to go get these other external resources to enforce a contract that you tell me in the beginning when I buy it that you've got my back.
Absolutely, 100%. And that's what's terrifying, is that this data is only going to be presented in March. And, some of the talking points of the proponents is that, once we evaluate that data, we'll walk it back if we need to change the bill, if we need to make changes. But we all know, once a right like that is taken away, you're not getting it back.
Yeah.
It's done. It's not coming back. And the lower income, middle class people of Florida are the ones who are really going to suffer from this next time there is a hurricane. The people with giant houses, multi-million dollar houses, commercial properties, multi-million dollar commercial properties. Because let's be clear, if you've got a small commercial property, if you're a landlord with a small house, or a commercial property, just a small building, next to a strip mall or something like that, you're also going to suffer from this, because you cannot pursue your insurance company with a claim under 100K, 150K, maybe even 200K. It's just not enough.
And if you do, then it's simply just going to come out of your pocket.
It's going to come out of your pocket. Exactly.
So, real quick, I mean, that was a great introduction. Do you have a little bit of time here?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask if you could. First of all, I'm Jared Rand, and I've been in the insurance claim industry, I guess you want to say, for about 10 years, and came in on the install side and kind of stumbled into sales and project management. But I wanted you to kind of introduce yourself, talk about some of your stats and what has put a driving force behind what you do has brought you here today.
Yeah, so my name's Yvan Lys-Dabronis. I have my own law firm, the Gulf Street Law Firm. Previously, I was an attorney, a litigator for the largest property damage law firm in Florida. I've been representing homeowners for 4.5 years. In that time, I've recovered over $15 million for homeowners around the state. In terms of success rate, these claims, they settle. And they're successful because a lot of people suffer from a lot of damage in Florida. Something they don't mention about Florida, but it's the unfortunate truth of Florida, is that we have hurricanes. It's inevitable. We've got hurricanes. We've got catastrophic losses. People may not know this, but during the summer, you've got thunderstorms every afternoon, every single afternoon. And some of these thunderstorms are wild. Hail. You've got 70 mile per hour plus winds in just a thunderstorm. So you've got losses that occur here on a significant basis, and that's something that isn't talked about much. Wasn't talked about much here. Not many other states are a lightning rod, literally and figuratively, to losses.
Well,
so,
I feel like there's always this underlying Floridian joke, that Floridians don't even get out of bed unless it's a Cat 1, and
that's right.
All that really speaks to is that the amount that these storms that we've been desensitized to them, and to only think that this is claimable or this is bad enough to file a claim is if your roof is leaking. That's the only time that it's considered, a valid, reason to call in a claim. Not knowing that the actual real about it is that all we're talking about is compromising longevity of the roofing system.
Right.
And so that's just amazing. But I'm sorry to cut you off. That just made me think of how desensitized we are to this stuff. That it's just not a big deal.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate for a lot of homeowners that I come around to represent. They often don't understand the severity of a really bad loss that they have at their property. And what doesn't help is that when insurance companies, when their adjusters come out and they say, "Oh yeah, this is nothing. You're fine. You need a shingle or two put back on." Meanwhile, their underlayment is compromised, and on every slope, they've got shingles creased and lifted, all on the roof, and you go up into the attic, which obviously the insurance adjuster doesn't want to spend the time up there, and you've got
and
multiple penetrations.
not only that, this kind of brings me into like some of the other questions I had for this is that let's talk real quick about all of the different roles in an insurance claim process.
Right.
We've got the policyholder,
Right.
we've got the carrier, and those
Right.
two are the ones that are married,
Right.
in a contract. Then we've got a contractor,
Right.
that could be mitigation, that could be install, restoration. Then we've got public adjusters,
Right.
and we've got insurance carrier adjusters, which are, they're independent or they could be, in-house. And then we've got attorneys. Can you talk to me a little bit about qualifications of those roles and what the lanes are?
Oh my goodness. Well, so, one thing that when I started doing this work, and then, as I've been doing it through the years, that is incredible to me, is the lack of experience of the actual field adjusters that insurance companies send out. Now, it's not every insurance field adjuster. Some of them are, previous GCs, roofing contractors, have a lot of experience, but the vast majority that gets sent out to properties, especially after a catastrophic loss like a hurricane, a vast majority of them are like high school graduate, college graduates with like a degree in, music.
Who went through 2 weeks of adjuster training.
Went through 2 weeks of adjuster training, and they're out there, and they're the ones assessing your property for the loss and the value of the loss. And that's not good. That's not good. They can't, you ask them to identify storm damage on a shingle roof, and they say, a creased shingle, that's not storm damage. Well, what caused that? Well, I don't know. Okay. And then did you write for it? No. Oh, why not? It's not covered. How do you know it's not covered? Well, I don't know. And those are serious. That's actually what happens in a deposition with field adjusters. Contractors are out there simply trying to help homeowners for the most part. And they're just submitting estimates for what needs to be done at the property. Some contractors get more involved in the insurance claim and try to assist more so than others. But they're there to assess the value, the scope of the loss, and the method and manner of repair necessary, because they're the professionals. Public adjusters, they come in when the insurance company just isn't doing their job, and public adjuster, attorneys can do the same thing, but public adjusters are often in the area. They're already writing estimates. They write estimates. Lawyers don't typically write estimates. We hire people to write estimates. So there's a difference there. But public adjusters and attorneys, we're there. We can advocate on the policy provisions. So when there's an exclusion cited, when the insurance company says, no, we're not going to cover this because you have no storm created opening, well, yeah, there is a storm created opening. Here's where the roofer identified it. It's on the, you can see the moisture on the sheathing, and I don't know if that's too loud there. Sorry,
No,
I'm in
okay.
a hall.
It's okay. I can hear you fine.
But we can argue exclusions, whether an exclusion applies, and that's for public adjusters and attorneys. And obviously, the most powerful tool that props up basically that entire framework is actually the attorneys for the homeowners that can pursue litigation. So contractors sometimes have success being able to help a homeowner in an insurance claim just by providing an estimate, and then potentially answering some questions with a insurance desk adjuster. Public adjusters will fight if there's a denial or underpayment, and they'll fight policy exclusions. And then attorneys, we come in at the very end when there's we're the last resort. We're the enforcers for
let's
the
let's
entire claim.
let's expand on that a little bit. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that in the end it takes an attorney to come in and reinforce what why is that? And I'm not saying from a philosophical point of view. I'm saying from the point of view of the fact that who wrote this policy? Who writes these policies and these
Right.
contracts?
Right. Exactly. I mean, the policies are obviously written by attorneys. So,
And then
um,
so it would take an attorney to navigate that,
right.
right?
Right. An attorney is the best option to navigate that. An attorney with experience in property damage, because, some of the testimony we heard today was actually from homeowners that are attorneys, but they don't practice in this field. So it's complex, and it takes time to learn this area of law, and it's going to be devastating when they take away the attorney fee provision. They're pushing through mandatory arbitration, which essentially a homeowner going into a mandatory arbitration without any experts or representation by an attorney is going in to basically be, they're going to be on the firing block, because the insurance company is going to bring in their defense attorney. They're going to bring in an expert that's a contractor or a price and scope expert. They're going to bring in an expert as to causation, and they're going to be able to present evidence to an arbitration panel, which works on rules that are typically similar to a courtroom. You have to be able to admit evidence, uh, and a homeowner, that is way over their head, and and that's crazy that this is something that's even being comprehended while simultaneously also taking away the one-way attorney fee statute. So if you go through arbitration and you win, you're going to have to
You
pay
have to
your
pay.
attorney. You're going
And
to have
if
to
you
pay your
lose, you have
attorney.
to pay yours and theirs.
Well, that's not clear, but
That's not clear.
yeah. It seems like that could
It
potentially
almost
be
it almost seems like a violation of due process. Well, it's not due process because you're the plaintiff, but
right, right, yeah,
but even
and
so, it's like you're basically cutting somebody off the knees, or you're forcing
yeah,
them into a position where they have to put the bill. So they got to pay a deductible, and they have to pay for enforcement of their contract, which is it's
yeah,
devastating.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
So
so let's talk a little bit about the different processes in that. Like what if somebody's going through a claim process, what's your standard process for filing a claim?
as far,
Actually, let me back up real quick. What does it mean to have insurance on your property first of
what it means to have insurance on your property, and this is just general. Obviously, there's different types of insurance
all? Right.
policies, but when you have an insurance policy, you have a contract with the insurance company that the insurance company will bring your property back to its pre-loss condition if it ever suffers from a covered peril. Okay. So what does that mean? Well, if it's not specifically excluded in your policy, typically any type of damage that occurs at your property is going to be covered. And typically in the policy, you're entitled to get the amount of money that it's going to take to bring you to pre-loss condition. You've got a couple coverages. You've got coverage on your dwelling, which is just the main structure of your home. You've got other structures. So you've got a detached, carport or shed, fencing that's going to be
Yeah.
under other structures. And you've got additional living expenses. So if you're
Really,
displaced from
just
your
a
property,
typical HO3 policy is replacement cost, and it's old
replacement costs.
trading old for new if it's damaged.
Exactly. Trading old for new. Um, and that's the typical type of coverage in Florida. Some states have ACV where you're entitled to only, uh, depreciated value. But in Florida, it is replacement cost value is the standard. And in order to have an ACV policy, there have to be specific things done before you even have your insurance policy put into place. So that's a good thing for people to know.
So then, say you get the loss. What is that process for filing a claim? What are you supposed to do?
You're supposed to report it immediately. You're supposed to call it in. You're supposed to say, "Hey, I've got damage," and they're supposed to then start adjustment of the claim. Um,
Now,
you know, the-
do you think it's valid that when they send an adjuster, those are some other terms too. What does it mean to adjust? And so do you think qualification wise, do you think it's appropriate for an adjuster to come out and write estimates on a claim, or do you think it should be like a situation where they're like, okay, if you are filing a claim on your policy, my job as an adjuster uh, is to say, yes, you have coverage for this type of claim. Tell us how much it's going to cost, or not have coverage for this type of claim. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
well, once again, when I take depositions of field adjusters, they always say we are trying to make payment. We want to pay out on a claim. But simultaneously they don't know how to identify damage from a covered peril. Simultaneously, there was testimony actually today from 3 different field adjusters on the right side, that are saying that even when they do write an estimate uh, for damage like a roof replacement or things like that, those estimates are being revised by a desk adjuster or whoever is doing that, an insurance company.
Because they're operating
Actually,
on guidelines and policies and stuff.
well, they're operating off of guidelines and policies, but they're keeping the estimate with the name of the field adjuster that went out there, without any indication to the homeowner that it's actually been revised by somebody else. So these homeowners are furious at the field adjusters that have went out, the guys that have the experience. Remember, I mentioned
Well,
the guys
and
that
not
have
only
the
that, they had a good conversation with them on the property, and they were like, "Man,
exactly.
you have a good, this is a good case. I'm going to go ahead and write you up for this." And
I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to take care of you. That's what they hear, and then they get the estimate, the undisputed amount, and it's 20%, less than 10% of what they're actually entitled to, and sometimes uh, the actual estimate written by the field adjuster. Now, it is the true value of the claim, but uh, there's the other adjusters that go in there and they have no qualifications. They straight out of high school, first job, and they've never worked construction in their lives, and they've got that 2 week training, and they get the qualification, and
they're
they're
making
out there
decisions.
and they're making decisions. So one thing when filing a claim and going through that process, you absolutely have to get your own estimates. You absolutely have to get your own estimates as a policyholder. That is critical.
I appreciate you
Uh,
bringing that back, because I realized I just took it off track a little bit. I was going to say, okay, let's go back to the process real quick. But yeah, that's good. So that's essentially, when you file a claim, you report it immediately. You let them know, hey, I've got damage. I need you to send somebody out, get your estimates, get your documentation, and have it prepared.
right.
Because, like, really on the face of it, filing a claim means you are claiming an amount of money, right? So you should know
Exactly.
how much you're claiming, right? You shouldn't wait for the
Absolutely.
carrier to tell you how much you're claiming.
Yes. And that's kind of when you go back to the definition of the adjustment of the claim. It should be the insurance company that's bringing out the people to adjust the loss, find out the value, find out whether it's covered or excluded. But they're not doing that, because why? Once you report a claim, you become the adversary of your insurance company. That's just plain and simple. You are now trying to take money from the insurance company to fix your property. That's the way they look at it. It shouldn't be like that, but that's the way they view it. And they view it under a lens of how can we pay the least amount for this loss,
because
because
simply they're a business.
they're a business. They're trying to make a profit. That was
You don't
mentioned today.
you
Uh,
don't go into business to not make a profit.
right, right, right. And unfortunately, like you got to tie it back into Florida. What we're dealing with here in Florida is a state that is just being hit constantly by, it's losses everywhere. There's claims everywhere. And it's just the nature of Florida. So, uh, taking away the homeowner's right to the attorney's fees, that's not going to solve this. What you're going to find is long term, when insurance companies now have no one to hold them to the fire. Uh, the properties that are damaged, people aren't going to have the money to pay for that damage.
I'm not going to take loans out for that.
They're not going to take loans out for that. They're going to take their keys if they've got little equity in their home. They're just going to give them back to the mortgage company and say, sorry, we're out of here. And what's terrifying, and I've kind of played this out in my head long term, well, then there's an opportunity, you might say, for landlords, businesses to come in and buy a property. Well, why would they invest in those properties, fix them up, when the next time a hurricane rolls around, it's obvious that you can't file a lawsuit, or it's not in your best interest? So these low income, middle class neighborhoods, what you're going to see, after hurricanes is that, they're just going to deteriorate. People are going to move out, and it's going to me, I'm expecting some, neighborhoods to look something like Detroit. When you see those pictures of overgrown homes.
I was going to say that part in Back to the Future, when they go
Right.
back to 1985 and it's the wrong timeline, and it's just decay, just like destruction. Because
yeah, and it's so sad because we've had all this influx of people wanting to come to Florida, which is great. That's great for business. We didn't have lockdowns, but what's going to happen when these new Floridians don't have any recourse? I mean, they're out, and this legislation being passed at this time with so many new Floridians who don't have experience with claims, who don't have experience with hurricane damage, and who are just going to be confused, after they suffer from a loss and see that their insurance company just is, doing horrible things on their claim. And then when they start asking questions, it's all going to come back to this week. And hopefully, they're going to watch the testimony presented from the people trying to fight to strike this bill down. And they're going to understand, how they got screwed over this week.
Have you happened to run into anybody or see anybody from the mortgage industry?
Yeah. There was a mortgage, group here. Can't remember the specific name. They were in the initial meeting. That was the, House Commerce Committee, and they supported the bill. So, I doubt that they talked to anybody on our side, and everybody on our side was just shaking their head because they do not understand the long term effects of this, because it will be devastating to home prices, housing prices, and it will be devastating to mortgage companies in the long run.
Yeah. Wow. That's that's amazing that they have it. So, have you read everything in this bill?
I've read a good portion of it. I'm focusing on there are things happening with citizens. There's things happening with the reinsurance, wrap program, and there's the primary focus for me is obviously what's going to happen to our industry.
Mm-hmm.
And so I focus on the mandatory arbitration clause, the one-way attorney fee statute changes, and kind of the compliance, portion that they're pushing through. So they're trying to make stricter compliance rules for insurance companies to speed up claims. those are the main parts that I focused on in my review of the bill.
I got about 10 minutes left before this call ends, but what do you think? What do you think? What's the pivot from this over the next few months for someone in your industry and someone in my industry and someone in the homeowners, the policyholders part? What do you think the best pivots are? Because obviously you take the cards, you can't change it,
Right.
on a micro scale. So you have to kind of take the cards and navigate it with that. So what would you say briefly on each of those three things?
Well, the writers of the bills have stated, but once again, it's different what's stated and what actually happens in practice. But the writers of the bills have reassured, because these questions have been asked, are if these bills become law, are they going to be retroactive on Hurricane Ian and Hurricane Nicole claims? The response is no, they will not be retroactive. So, in terms of helping homeowners in the short term, it's a good sign. But after that, after this legislation is pushed through, and hopefully the way that they are applying the law is the way that it's been applied before when legislative changes have been made, which is that if your policy takes effect after the legislation is put in place, that's when the new laws govern. It's the policy effective date versus your date of loss or the time that you file the lawsuit.
Okay.
So that's good in the short term. In the long term, I hate to say it, but in terms of industries such as public adjusters, contractors that are experienced in insurance claims and handle insurance claims, it's not going to be good.
Well,
really,
what I've been gearing up to do to pivot for something like this is we have to, as contractors, have to relearn the retail model, learn how to sell financing, because there's still going to be market for people that want to get their house fixed, and so I think that we have to pivot for that to basically make up for what is not being covered and what we can't help enforce. So, I mean, I think that's what we have to do as contractors. But
right, absolutely, financing is definitely going to be one way that homeowners, when they do get shortchanged, that they'll be able to bring their house back to its pre-loss condition. But some may do it, others may not, and that's unfortunate for the policyholders at large. So yeah, absolutely. There's still going to be, there's always going to be contractors in Florida. There's always going to be damage to fix in Florida. But in terms of policyholders being able to pay for that from the contract that they have with their insurance company that's supposed to protect them, yeah, it's scary. It's tragic. And the way that it's been pushed through without any data supporting the not only what they think is the cause of the issue, so they're blaming it all on litigation, but they have no data to support that premiums are going through the roof because of litigation. So there's no connect there. And then they say, well, this is definitely going to decrease litigation, and that's definitely going to decrease premiums, and they have nothing to prove that either. So
they can't even provide a profit and loss statement overall in the entire industry. But I do recall right after a year after Hurricane Irma that the insurance industry was at a $750 billion surplus after paying out the first year on Irma. So, I mean, I don't know if, that's as a whole, that's seems like you're doing pretty good,
Yeah.
But
well, you would think that you could that they should at least have that data individual insurance companies, whether or not that they are suffering dramatic losses because of litigation. But we don't have that. We don't have that information. You would think that they would willingly provide that. Like, this is how much money we're losing in terms of litigations. And even then, does that matter when homeowners are successful in that litigation?
Yeah,
They are
the very basis of the litigation, they win, and
if
that's completely overlooked.
If they're winning, then
it was valid.
It was valid, and maybe you should reevaluate your claims handling and your adjustment of claims. So it's and nobody has talked about that. They have no data, like I said, what the average claim, what the value is, how many claims are being brought by homeowners, how many of those are successful, how many claims are being brought on bad faith, and how many of those are successful. They just don't have that data. And that's coming out in March. So months from when this bill's pushed through, are we actually going to take a look at the data that?
And you somehow expect that over a 3-month period that we're going to compile enough data when you've been researching to put these bills through for 10 years, you're going to do it all of a sudden in 3 months? Come on now.
Right. So, yeah, one of the representatives in the committee the appropriations committee that I was just in made a statement that we're never going to see that data. We're never going to see it.
It's just another kick the can down the road. That's all this is.
We're never going to see it. So they made a big issue out of this. They didn't provide the data. All they had was that one statistic that 7% of claims in Florida cause 79% of the property damage litigation in the U.S. They never clearly said how they came to those figures, and they just said that on repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat. But they can't tell us how successful those claims are. So if they're successful, that's not a homeowner created issue. That's not a litigation created issue with frivolous lawsuits. Those are valid lawsuits going through, and that's the insurance. That's a judgment on the insurance company and their practices.
Yep. Yeah. So, Yvan, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you live from Tallahassee, right there on the scene. And we'll do this again, man. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your questions, and hopefully we provided some further understanding into what's going on now and just the general claims process and what to expect moving forward.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your expertise.
All right. Thanks.
Talk to you soon, buddy.
All right. I'll see you.